Hey guys, Joshua Godamu here, and if my camera's going in and out of focus at the moment, that's because it's on super macro because you're going to need a close-up look at this tutorial. Now, our first custom Gundam MSIA tutorial was on just mix-matching pieces. And that's pretty easy, pretty self-explanatory, but it has limits of compatibility. Right now, we're going to learn one of the main steps to bypassing compatibility. So what happens if, say, you wanted a unit's legs on this particular unit that it just didn't fit for whatever reason, or you wanted a lower leg, like a dom leg, on this leg with this upper leg? Well, how would you do that? It's impossible. No, it's not. It's called joint replacement. And I've done this many times, and very successfully. I did joint replacement between the GM Quell and the, for the GM Quell. And that involves some cutting, but most of them don't actually usually require some cutting. Joint replacement was done on the neck. The Alex Gundam's neck was removed and replaced with a RX-78-2 version 1.5 neck for this GMD type. None of these are painted yet. Izaku 1 neck was embedded into the body here and glued in. And using a Dremel, which is covered in another tutorial in the future, I made a neck hole for the Zaku 2 head so that the Zaku 2 version 1 actually has a neck. Oh yeah! Here on the Zaku tank, I took Butler Gundam's forearms, which had no joint, by the way, and drilled a hole into them and embedded Zaku 2 version 1 forearm peg into there so that it would be compatible with the Zaku 2 version 1 upper arm. And so basically the idea of joint replacement is exactly this right here. But like I said, it works for neck pegs, it works for arms, it works for legs and knee joints. The only thing I haven't really gotten it to work for very well is the lower torso ball joints. But you could replace shoulder joints as well, and you can mess with the lower joints. The peg in there, but that's a kind of a tough one. It's hard to replace because it requires some cutting and sculpting and stuff. But yeah, you can replace joints. That means that joints that otherwise wouldn't be able to attach, like the Butler Gundam's forearm, can be made to. Means that legs that otherwise wouldn't work can be made to work. When I was first making the GMD type, I didn't know that I could Dremel the inside of the RX-78 1.5's leg to make it wider, and so it wasn't staying on the lower torso ball joint very well. And so what I came up with originally was to do this. Now, these two were not initially compatible. So what I had to do, in order to make them compatible, was I removed the little joint piece from this and embedded it, or replaced it, in the Gundam version 1.5 leg. As you can see, it's nearly flawless. Pretty cool, huh? So that's what we're going to learn. What you need. First off, you need a cup of really, really hot water. This is important. 2, you need the Gundam parts that you're going to switch out. Just for example, I'm not actually in the middle of a joint replacement project, but I got a lot of these. Burning Gundam's leg. It's double jointed. Yeah! You might want to use that to make something like a version 1 Gundam MSIA action figure double jointed. And you could, if you're handy with what you do. So, step 2, drop it into the really, really hot water. Then let it sit for like an entire minute, maybe 2 minutes. And if it's, if you want to be prudent, you can dump out the hot water and pour more hot water in and let it sit for another minute. The point of this is heat expansion. It expands the plastic, it makes it a little bit more pliable, a little bit more malleable, loose, and it loosens up the glue that holds those joints in. Generally, when you're doing joint replacement, you will need to add a little bit of glue to put it back in and make it stay. Not always, but, it's your custom. You don't want it falling apart on you. So that's in there. The tools you're going to need. This is called an awl. That's what my wife told me.
AWL.
AWL. Yeah, did I spell that wrong? AWL is how it's spelled. It's an awl. It's kind of like a stabbing weapon. And maybe you don't have an awl. Maybe your dad does. You could probably pick one up from a hardware store for pretty cheap. But this is another one, or something akin to it. If you don't have one of these, you could pick the smallest flathead screwdriver that you have. And I mean small. Because the idea is to pry the joint out. You know, like to pop it out with doing as little damage to the figure as possible. So now I'm going to hand the camera off to my wife. I'm going to dump this water out in the sink real quick. So we have our item. I'm going to take it apart here. Now this middle joint isn't terribly important right now. So I'm going to try and take that out. You see how that has that give there? Now normally I wouldn't be able to pull this. It's just because this other joint's here. This other joint that doesn't want to come out at the moment. Goodbye, other joint. I'll find you someday. So you pick a place of attack. And wherever you can get a better grip at it. You know, ideally you don't want to tear up your plastic because this may actually be the part you want to replace on. But I'm just prying in there. And do this slowly because it can break off in there and then you're stuck. Do you see that? That little piece right there? Now, whatever you're trying to implant this in, let's say your goal is to implant that into the Alex. It may be 100% compatible or it might be too tall. That's where cutting comes in. So you would just pop it back out, maybe cut it along here to make it shorter, and then it would fit in there. But yeah, you get the idea. You take it out of this one, you take it from this one, and then you just replace. Ta-da! Joint replacement. Like I said, use a dab of super glue on that peg that fits in after you've tested it. And so it's just a really easy task to do. Now this one's a little different, and I didn't actually scope that out ahead of time, but the same principles are going to apply no matter what. We're going to want to get in there. And we're just going to want to pry it out. That is the goal.
Please, when trying this at home, don't stab your fingers.
Stabbing your finger does hurt. It's not recommended.
And we're going...
Now, this one's pretty tough.
Sorry, guys.
Just because of the way the plastic is built around it. But this one still uses the same principle. It's probably cooled off a little bit. So in this situation, if the part was important to me, I would probably just put it back in the hot water. You do not want to use needle nose pliers to pull these out. They will break almost every time. There's like a, like 1% chance you'll actually pull it out with the needle nose pliers. Here we go. See? Now that one was really embedded in there because of the way this part was designed. Most of them are not like that, but we got that out. And like I said, now these might be too thick to fit in your Alex Gundam leg hole. So, take this one out for example. That's pretty thick to fit in that hole. What you would do is you get a drill bit for your power drill and you make this hole a little bit bigger with your power drill. Then this should fit in quite nicely. And of course, add a little bit of glue. If you make it too big, that's okay, because the glue will help lock it in anyways. But joint replacement, let me see if I can find a little part I sent flying. That little middle knee joint. Now.
Here, you come back and hold the camera.
No, I got another one right here. Anyways. Basically, we have this right here. We have our whole joint. This little piece is the one that went flying. Not because of joint replacement, but because it was attached and I got it out. But you could have joints like this totally removed. So now we have a double jointed knee that we could put in any figure we want. Even, say, the Alex Gundam. Now imagine that. What if the Alex Gundam version 1 was double jointed because you took double jointed parts from a figure that's fairly common and put them in? This can be done for shoulders. It can be done for feet ball joints. I mean, just about anything. Now, another piece I need to get into, this doesn't just work for joint replacement. You see this antenna in the GM's head? Now, of course, I drilled and cut into the GM's head and then put that in there and glued it in. But how did I get that little antenna out? Where did it come from? Well, it came from a GM custom. See that? It's kind of embedded in there. Everything on these MSIA figures, a lot of parts are actually glued on. And so by putting them in that hot water, it breaks up the glue. And I'm not going to actually do this to this figure because this is one of my customs. But I can pry that antenna out if I wanted to. I could pry boosters out. You know, actually boosters aren't that hard to get out. These little ammo clips right here, you can pry those off. Did you know that? Because they're just glued on. Anything like that, you can just take. Now, some things are molded on like these, and those have to be cut off, but things that are glued on, by using a flathead screwdriver that's really small, or an awl, you can remove parts and make the most amazing customs. I mean, if I didn't have access to antennas, I wouldn't have been able to put that antenna into the GM D-Type's head. And of course the head just fell out because I haven't glued the neck peg in yet. And you can see an example, this hole isn't big enough for this yet. And I had to cut it down even a little bit. But I'll make it a little bit bigger after he's been painted, or just before I paint him. But he will be completed that way. So it's very exciting. You can do anything. Anything. Compatibility is no longer an issue for your customization. You can take joints from anything, and you can remove this leg, remove this joint, put in a Dom leg, and bam, you got a very cool custom. Anything like that. So remember, there is no spoon. Catch you guys later.